Todd, Dan Bilesmo was saying it's almost unfair or maybe created all this hype about, Connor versus Jack and all this stuff. There's an intrigue to it, though, a fascination, you have to admit. How do you see just the fact that these two guys are going to be on the NHL ice surface for the first time?
Well, I'm probably going to echo what Dan said. Now, obviously, I wasn't part of his press conference, but first of all, they're two fabulous players. We're very lucky to have them on our teams. We're very lucky to have them in our league, and the fans are very lucky to watch them play on a nightly basis because they're gifted, they're skilled, they're the future of our game, and they happen to be playing on the same ice surface tonight for the first time, so that's why we have playoff-type coverage for two teams that are probably not going to make it. So that's all taken care of. Those are the facts. But for the coaching staff and Connor's teammates, it's about the team. And two teams that are very similar in many different ways, where we've been able to get that generational player, but we still have a lot of work to do. And we have 18 games left in our season. We've set some goals, some internal goals that we want to work towards. And it's real important that our team approaches tonight's game properly and not just the Connor Eichel matchup. And we can't avoid that because it is, as you said, a special night. But both coaches, I'm sure, will be stressing team versus individual.
Dan said he's watched sort of the ups and downs with Eichel because he's played, I think, every game, almost every game. You lost your guy for 37 games. Has his evolution been different this year because he had that huge gap in the middle of his schedule he didn't play?
Well, I don't know the answer to that because we lost that gap. So I don't know what would have happened. Would Connor hit the wall? Would have he had a slump? Would have he been down in the dumps because of some things? I don't know. It didn't happen. I know that he started out and the focal point on him was immense. And about 3, 4, 5 games into the season, he kind of let loose, and from that point on to his injury was tremendous. He ended up being a very frustrated young man during the rehab process, and then since he's been back, he's been pretty dynamic. He's also learning the league. The good thing for Jack, I think, is he's kind of gone through it already and figured out some of the opponents, figured out some buildings, figured out the referees, the linesmen, how they behave and act on the ice surface. He probably understands his teammates a little bit better and the coaching staff. Connor's still going through that. He hasn't played half a season yet. So they're a little bit different in that matter. But, Connor we haven't really seen Connor slump yet. He's had some tough nights where teams have checked him very closely, but nothing that I would call an extended slump by any means.
Given what's coming tomorrow, I assume as a coach in Edmonton, watching a guy in Buffalo wouldn't watch very often. How much more have you watched of Jack, and what are your impressions?
Through pre-scouts, all the teams in the league, and include Buffalo in that, Peter Chiarelli and his large staff and our coaching staff, we spend the time in watching players that are under 24. And obviously in Jack's case, we've been able to watch him a little bit more lately to get prepared for tonight, but he's had a tremendous season. I don't think the outside world understands how hard it is for these two in particular, but there's others, Panarin, Larkin, those type of players, Gostbier, that are coming into the league and are carrying their teams or are catalysts for their teams. It's a hard league to play in, especially as a young man, and all of those players are having terrific years.
You think this might be, why not just make the North American team announcement, or at least part of it after tonight?
I don't set the rules. We'd have 2 rooms full of people then.
But this seems to be a preview, an intriguing little glimpse of what that team could look like.
Perhaps, yeah. And then there's, on our side, there's Nugent Hopkins that still isn't in the lineup, but that announcement will be made. I believe we're announcing 16 players to begin with, and then filling up the roster after that. So those two stand a good chance on being on that roster. I think the special thing is that these two are going to play a lot of hockey against each other, but they're also going to play some hockey together. And that'll be a unique situation whenever that occurs.
You said it was a hard league, and we've seen that with Nail. I mean, he has struggled there the last couple of years. Based on practice, it looks like tonight he's going to be on the left side where he finished up on really that one out the other night. Just a thought on having Yakupov play with McDavid again, and him playing left wing instead of right.
Well, he's a skill. He's the number 1 pick overall, so his talent level should be exceptional. He's got hockey sense that should allow him to play both sides. A lot of the European players prefer to play on their off wing. We're going to leave Jordan where Jordan is. They've had some, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, that. Thanks, Drew. Good Saskatoon guy. Chemistry. They've had some chemistry, and we're not going to fool around with that. Yak's going to he's been waiting for this opportunity, and we're going to give it to him. He'll determine how far and how long we go with it, along with Connor and Jordan. We expect to see good things.
Mixing in these new faces here with the waiver pickups and training out for you guys. What do you expect?
We've recalled 2 players from the minors. We've traded for 1. We've picked 2 up on waiver. So we have new faces. Not necessarily all new faces, but faces that haven't been around us for a while, and new faces. I think our team will take us 3 or 4 games to begin to develop chemistry again. We'll have lines, we'll have pairs that could be very quickly moved around if we don't like what we're seeing. But it will take some time, and it was interesting talking to both the Adams, Cracknell, and Party, and the game. I think it was Party that made the comment that the game is played relatively similar around the league. There's a few systematic changes, but the big difference between coaching staffs and around the league is sometimes language. We may be talking the exact same thing that Danny Bilesman is here in Buffalo, but the verbiage we use, the language we use, the terms we use could be like a foreign language to them. So we confuse them a little bit to begin with, but eventually they'll get it. And they're good players. They deserve to be in the league, and we'll give them every chance to have success with us.
You won a lot of games in San Jose. Dan won a lot of games in Pittsburgh. You're both now going through a very similar process. How difficult/challenging has it been dealing with losing?
It's been a big change. It certainly has. But coming into the season, your goals are adjusted somewhat. You're a little more realistic about what you have. In San Jose, Detroit, when I was there, we were kind of nailing the shingles down on the roof, if you will. Here we're still digging the hole and pouring the basement. And when you look at it that way, you adjust your expectations, and you have to adjust your patience level. And that's where we're at right now. We understand where we are. We're not accepting of it. We're not happy about it. But we're also understanding, and we know we've got work to do. I'm sure Dan probably feels the same way. And as a staff, and even as the players, we chose to be here. We want to be here. I want to be here. I want an opportunity to try and fix things. And I know Dan feels that way. I know Mike feels that way in Toronto, doesn't he, Mike?
Yeah.
See, there you go. And there's a number of teams that are in that evolution or in that phase, and it's a great challenge for all of us, not just the players, but the coaches, the managers, the training staffs. We want to be part of something that turns around.
Is the teaching aspect? Even when you're coaching a good team, you're always trying to teach. But is it at a different level when you have a team like this, especially a young team?
It is with youth. Some of the veterans have been around long enough; they know the tricks of the trade and how the league works. But it is with youth. It shows up a lot. We get frustrated with our power play sometimes, as do the fans, and because our measuring tool is what we had in San Jose. We had a unit together for almost 5.5 years. Put the same 5 guys out. They were so far ahead of the curve with adjustments and changes on the fly and interaction with players. We want to get there. We want to be there now, and that's where the frustration level comes in. We got to take it back, and until we get the foundation in, it's hard to advance it. And that's an area we're struggled in lately. We've got to get better at that.
What void does Adam Clendenning fill, and how is he mesh?
I'm sorry, Adam.
What void does Adam Clendenning fill,
Well, Adam's had an interesting year. He's been, he's well-traveled. You talk about that language and adjusting to different teams, but he's a puck-moving defenseman. He's got a pretty good eye and sense of what's going on around him. And if he uses what his assets are, he's a pretty good, has a pretty good impact on the game. I see him more as an offensive guy, and he's fit our team fairly well. But it hasn't been an easy year for him as an individual. He's popped around so much. Met a number of coaching staffs, new teammates. I think he's done a pretty admirable job.
New sense that he's ready to settle in and finally somewhere.
Well, I hope so. I think this 18 games is a great opportunity for him within our organization, but also to show the rest of the hockey world where he belongs. So, if he has what we expect him to have, then he'll have an opportunity to stay with our organization. That's where he's at right now. It's a great chance for him.